Welcome to the Practice Podcast, conversations probing the nature of practice. I'm your host, Dave Fearon. There are quite a few occasions where I get to be in Zoom meetings with multiple people, thanks to my publisher, My Library, and Nexus for Change, which is affiliated loosely with Bowling Green State University. So that brings me to meet, sometimes in breakout rooms and other times just through normal chat, people who are quite fascinating. And so I thought, what could I add to the flavor of my podcast that's purple? I want to add something purple. I want to have the color tonality of purple. And I searched around my memory and I thought, well, there was one guy who I think introduced himself as a shameless purple squirrel. Now, starting Rijon Erickson with this question: why would a squirrel be shameless?
Oh,
I didn't know they were shameful.
Well,
or shameable.
Well, I became a purple squirrel before I became shameless.
Okay.
So,
but you're the squirrel.
I am the shameless purple squirrel. Yes, I am the squirrel.
Okay.
And that came. There's a story to that if you'd like to hear it.
Sure.
And then we can go into shameless as well, because that's part of the story arc. So I spent 20 years earning a paycheck at a utility and was in IT, generic kind of roles. And this is a theme. I never really had a defined role that lasted a long time. And so I started in help desk. I graduated college as a jazz musician. I went to school for music, and I'm ending up here in IT in the help desk.
Mm-hmm.
But the help desk is the best place for a jazz musician to be, because it's always surprise, it's always connection, it's empathy, and I loved it. Great environment. So I worked through IT and get into application support, generalist. I wasn't a project manager, not a BA, not any of the kind of traditional roles, but I just loved doing what I was doing, and people apparently liked what I was doing. Oh. So big utility, mergers happen. I get bought and sold a few times to different outsourcing firms. This is in the 2000s, and
a lot of change in IT world.
Yeah. So eventually I end up 2005 working for IBM at this utility. Go through a few years and at IBM, get on this huge project. I go from support to delivery. And so in a different role, I am now billable, interestingly. So the client is paying for every hour of mine, paying IBM, of course. And so at that point, I get on this big project. I'm doing more roles, squirrely roles. I call them squirrely because it's different stuff. I'm managing several work statements, including my own. I know how much the utility is paying for me, and I know how much I'm making, which is interesting. Yeah. Still making my paycheck with IBM, and this huge, wonderful project. It's a post-merger integration project, ERP systems combining. There's 6 states, multiple jurisdictions, operating companies. Utilities are a marvelous. It's a marvelous environment. I love it. There's so much culture, and it just a special place in my heart. But so I'm on this big project. They didn't know what to do with me. Really, they didn't. So I'm on this project doing lots of stuff, end up learning about Agile software development 2015, and doing a little bit of Agile experimentation, unauthorized, might I say, on the team.
They can't get you now. The statute of limitations has passed.
Exactly. So it's public now. I've told this story enough, so it's there. So I learned that Agile. I get the bug. I do a little transformation secretly. Have lots of management support. Love it. then I get to a point where, well, this gig with IBM is ending.
Mm.
And I'm thinking, well, who am I? How am I going to describe myself to the world?
There's the rub, as they say. You were IBM. You could carry that around in your visage, even, and you had lots of stuff to do, even if no one told you. You found interesting things to do, but you were constantly working on your own agility, not just the agile concept of product and service design. You were, I'm guessing, making yourself more fluid and more squirrely.
Yes. And might I also say, looking back at those dots that are connecting, very musical. And that the idea of what agile software development is can be about being iterative and creative and diving into the unknown, and the level of mastery that you have in your practice allows you to navigate that uncertainty with grace and confidence in many ways. And so that's what I was experiencing at that time. And so IBM is ending, the project is ending. I'm thinking, who am I? What am I? Why am I here? What do I want? And I'd also started singing the song of Agile in the communities. Agile swing.
Yeah, it was the thing. It was the thing. Still is, but it was imported through the idea of Scrum and changing the practices of teams, and it was quite new and kind of sexy.
Yeah. Oh, and I fell in love. I fell in love with Agile in 2015. It has been a torrid affair, however. So I fell in love with Agile. I get involved with this recruiter because I'm talking about in the community. The recruiter is saying, they're hosting the Agile community events. I say, all right, Brent, I'm coming up to the end of this contract. I know I need to go out into public. I know IBM is getting paid this for what I do, but I have no idea what to call it. And so can you help me out? And I say, all right, well, we'll do this. I'll take my resume as it stands. We'll go to a coffee shop. I'll put the resume face down. We'll talk for however long it takes, a couple hours, whatever. Then I'll flip it up, go get coffee, and come back, and then you tell me. You tell me what's up with that. So we do this. I go get coffee, come back. He looks at the resume, looks at me, resume, me. You're like a purple squirrel.
Oh, so he gave you that nom de plume.
Yes, he did. And I was like,
nom de purple.
Yeah. And of course, when you hear that, what the hell are you talking about? And it's a complaint that recruiters make when a hiring manager gives the recruiting firm an impossible job.
Yeah.
So
how am I going to sell a purple squirrel to a gray, black and white company?
Oh, well, or how am I going to find a purple squirrel? I only know about brown squirrels, and they're in the wilderness, it's a complaint. Well, think about the squirrels of the world that who have crafted themselves in such a way that they're rare and valuable. Because there was this monetary value that was placed on my time and contribution.
Of course.
But how do you say that? And I said, all right, purple squirrel, I love it. I'd read Purple Cow by Seth Godin. It's like, purple cow. Hey, but purple squirrel is like a purple cow. It's just more agile. So they are. I'm by coincidence, not to want to break your flow here, but there's a squirrel jumping between the branches outside my home office here. I wonder if that's done in sympathy. Maybe I could call of the wild squirrel.
He was definitely gray, however, but very agile. He jumped. I mean, this tree's got to be 3-4 stories high, because it's certainly higher than my house. And he just made this bold leap, and he's still alive. So now we're back to you as a squirrel. Is there a little bit of that in you too? The willingness to take some bold leaps?
Well, that's where I am now. I went my squirrel path. So the squirrel went through some trials and tribulations this past 5 years. So I was in 2018, IBM ended. I'm purple in public singing, agile to the world. I am singing it, loving it.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point in April of 2018, well, I meet somebody new. I meet open space technology. And well, I fell in love with open space technology.
Open space technology, another breaking trend.
Yeah. So I fell in love there. I'm in 2018, I attended my first open space April, and I got the bug. It was all about my session was being vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
I sat in the middle of a conference room after I called my session, silent on the floor, back, eyes on the ceiling, completely silent for a very uncomfortable time,
Mm-hmm.
to create this sense of empathy with the group. So that was a great experience. I said, I want to facilitate the next one. So
Mm-hmm.
I discovered a guy named Daniel Mezek, who was teaching open space technology at a time. And should it happen, this is a connection here. In his training, not only did he introduce Harrison Owen's first book, Spirit, he also introduced the handout that Peter had, in the Towards a Behavioral Description of High Performing Systems from 1977.
That's right.
And
Peter Vale.
so that name has been living with me since then. I learned open space.
He handed you that, and in regard to your understanding of openness and spirit, or spirit for sure, because that's Peter.
Yeah,
he wrote a book called Spirit. So
it was core to and Daniel didn't talk about it a lot in the class, but I picked up that book and I said, there's a reason he shared this, and it connects this idea of peace and high performance.
That's right.
And which is the theme of the Open Space Institute annual event, Peace and High Performance. So all this is coming together for me in that my practice, and I view that as this practice of from moving from othering to togethering, and that was born in open creating space, opening and holding space, and that led me to togethering, to bring people together, facilitate the event, which is great. And then I went in 2019. I needed a gig, contract at the bank, and 5 months in, I'm diagnosed with cancer.
Well, that's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, and so that's so Agile kind of left that open space, stayed with me, and has been to this day. And so I had cancer, and the bank fired me 5 days after the diagnosis. So that was the end of the basic world.
Yeah, that's putting you in a very tough position, both emotionally and financially, but hopefully not spiritually, because your spirit must have carried you through on that one, huh?
It was tough. And I said that cancer broke my body, but it also kind of broke my spirit a bit. It was like this disaster recovery,
Yeah.
And now I've recovered. I'm back in the world again. And through that experience in the hospital, this is where shameless comes. That when you're in the hospital, as I was for 2 months during that time.
Oh Lord.
And I was in 2 months of getting chemo. Then they wanted to give me a stem cell transplant after that, and another 3 weeks in the hospital. And through this time, when you're in the hospital, you cannot afford shame. You're naked half the time.
That's right. Poking and prodding
at all hours and every 4 hours. You're going to the bathroom with people present, which is like, really?
Yeah.
So at this point, I mean, in that period, I said, I have no shame.
Yeah,
I have no shame. And so that all came together. The shameless purple squirrel it came to me in. So I came out in 2022, started connecting with people again. I got a couple independent gigs because I was never I want to be a gig worker in the knowledge worker.
Okay. You don't want to go back to the steady paycheck for whatever sacrifices you need to make to get it.
Yeah, because I lost all of my autonomy when I was in the hospital.
Yeah.
And I if I can avoid it, someone's got to pay me, of course.
Yes.
But I want to be a force for good and a force for change to honor the personal sovereignty and human dignity of the other.
Yeah.
So, and this is all about collaborative change too. All this agile stuff, all the stuff, open space, these are all collaborative change.
Yeah.
I mean, practices and in the language of that, knowing Peter, coming into contact with Nexus for Change, coming into contact with you, all of these themes are really amplifying that for me. So what is my practice? We shall see.
Well, I that is your practice. We shall see. And I think that it's almost, it could almost be your promise and your logo. Connect with Rijon Erickson, and we shall see. See what? What is it we're looking for? Are we looking for a different client base? Are we looking for a way to utilize our over investment in technology? There's all kinds of things that people don't yet see. And I think what you're saying is you would set up the collaboration opportunities and force the energies through those collaborations to the point where they go, whoa, how come we didn't see that before? Yeah. Is that close to I'm putting on my mystic hat here.
Well, no, I love the mystery. That's also part of my
we shall see. Well, there's the gist of all mysteries, right? Who done it? Well, we shall see.
Yeah, who done it? Why? And what the motivation? And for me, and what wraps around all this stuff is this collaborative change and gathering in a circle. What happens before that circle is the invitation.
Yeah.
And I desire that invitation to let go, the invitation to look and to look deeply, within yourself and within your context of what might I see if I looked more deeply?
I think that's clearly a generic fear, looking deeply, in part because maybe 50% of us think that there is nothing there. We're shallow. And if we look, we're going to see the bottom pretty quick. And there's some others who think that perhaps there's no bottom at all, and they would get sucked down into whatever would pull them. When we go back to Peter for a minute, when he was teaching, and I was one of his students long before you were born, he, in so many words, said, there really is no shallow end for any of us. And if we're going to think about humans being organizations or being working as organizations, there's an impossible number of ways of looking at that and trying to understand it. And yet, why not do it anyway? Impossible or not, let's just sink our teeth into this question. And that would be one of his many classes. It was certainly the way he wrote. If you think about how he wrote, even the paper that you were handed, it's a conversation. He's saying to the reader, let's think about this. I think high performance has something to do with these factors, but I'm not going to tell you that those are the factors. What do you think? Am I missing something? Is there something altogether different that we could be looking at? I can tell you this. There was some students in those graduate classes who came out of aerospace because we were here in Connecticut. And then I co-taught a class with them where it was almost all the people in the MBA program had been brought over from from military careers in aerospace, and they went nuts. They hated that approach. The letters to the dean. This man will not tell us what is. He'll only ask us, what do we think? And we didn't pay all this money to be asked. We paid all this money to be told. And so Peter would very smart, he put on that, he had a wonderful sort of quiet grin, and he'd say, well, there's a way of getting out of this course. Is I'm going to tell you very little, and I'm going to ask you a whole lot. So that's been my example from the way I taught, and even the way the book's coming out on practice. So, well, what's wrong with that? Nothing. It's just that a lot of people want, particularly nowadays, they want to be told, and they want it to be told in a simple fashion, and they want to be told that that's all there is to know, nothing else. Here, folks, move along. So you're going to be stepping in the next day, whatever your future is, into high resistance to depth. Even giving you the time, like NTL used to bring people together for 3 weeks when Peter and the founders of NTL, Dave Jameson, others, 3 weeks up in here in the western mountain of Maine. Now they can barely get people to spend a half a day. Yet they want the same outcome. They want to be transformed. So now my speech is over. Give me your impressions and answer to what about depth and the patience to get there.
What about depth? I think it being an invitation is, to me, is I'm gonna go deep. That's who I am. I'm not afraid of the depth, and come with me, and we'll dive in together, and we'll go as I will. Just know I'm here, and I'm here to be with you. And my desire in the moment of the conversation, and this is, to me, this is about the spirit, and this is also about the music, is that we're jamming right now. This is, this interaction that we have is only ever going to be in this time, in this way. If it were, when it's observed or listened, it will change, because of that's how the universe is. But this is the human spirit. We are in this, as I call, this is part of the mantra. There are a couple pieces of this. I'd like to be poetic about it, so sue me.
Go ahead.
It's with humble grace and breathless awe, I stand in reverence of the divine beauty and sacred mystery of the human spirit. And when I say that, and I feel it, I know what it means to me, and I tear up, and it's easy to get me to cry. And that's, I'm there. You don't have to go there, but the fact that I'm here, maybe that opens space for you to imagine, to feel into what is here. And the music bit, and this kind of comes to the point of certainty, and certainty versus mystery. And this quote from Frank Zappa, which is it's information is not knowledge. Knowledge is not wisdom. Wisdom is not truth. Truth is not beauty. Beauty is not love. Love is not music. Music is the best. So, and it's just like that Harrison never explains what spirit is. Can you really explain what music is?
That's a great question. Yeah. And I think that's a nice combination between we shall see and we shall feel. Because to me, music certainly has a cerebral aspect to it, but I quickly switch to the next performance when I'm not feeling very much. So I think it's a combined seeking. I want to see more. I want to feel more. And music is a conditioning for that. It works beautifully with emotions. Tell me a little bit more about your music life.
Musically, I was introduced to music very young. I attended the laboratory school that was attached to Indiana State University. Very
Mhm.
fortunate that my elementary and middle school band director, Judith Grimes, was a director of bands at the university. And she also taught the elementary school and middle school bands at the time. It's part of her research activity too, I think, and her publishing.
Oh, yeah.
A fantastic, wonderful woman. And she, in first grade, she introduced a cohort of kids to jazz improvisation at first grade. So, and you start with just, all you have to do is one note. Just sing just one note and maybe one. Then when you're good with one, you go to two, then there's a three note and then the blues scale. And that's all we did. But since that you take a solo over the blues, and you feel what it's like to play your instrument with the tone and beauty of that, and to be free expression in jazz. So that was first grade. And so I had the jazz bug at first grade.
There you go.
I went through, did well in school, and decided I was going to go to college, not to be a physicist or musical acoustics, but to be a jazz musician. So I went to Bowling Green State University, and I studied with Jeff Halsey in the jazz program there. And which is kind of weird. You think, if you want to be a jazz musician, why not just move to New York or LA or what, Nashville or something? But no,
because everyone else did.
Because everyone else did. But now looking back, all the dots that have connected back to BG and back. And so I went to school for BG. I met my wife, and I didn't become a professional musician, but the music is in me.
Yeah.
And
when did you say, okay, I'm not going to be a professional musician, but I am going to be employed in a utility?
That was what I think that there was a period in time where we had a personal trauma in Debbie and I, when I was in my senior year, that I needed to be in Bowling Green, not traveling to Chicago with the jazz band.
Okay.
And I think it was at that moment that that kind of, it was a schism, that wasn't going to be life. I was not going to be a traveling musician. I was going
and that would have been the life because you had the bachelor's to be a professional jazz musician. You would be living out of the proverbial suitcase.
Yeah. And what did but I still loved the music, but I knew that my life was going to change. And so I toyed with, again, Debbie and I got married that summer after my senior year. And we moved to Cincinnati, where she's from, which I still love Cincinnati. And we lived there for 22 years. And music fell out of the professional part of my life, but it was always there, because I sold recording studio equipment in '93 after graduating, and then it settled into my soul. And it is now the language I use to describe organizational behavior. It's the language I use to describe any kind of group activity. I listen for the music. I feel into what's there with the people, and you can tell when something is not in harmony.
Oh yeah.
And the metaphors are voluminous. Is our organization an orchestra? Is it a band of marching bands? Are we marching to this tune? Are we a jazz ensemble? Are we a trio?
Yeah.
Am I in the house? I mean, so if someone can accept that if we can talk musically about that, then that can open a lot of things. But
yeah,
that's how music has come to me, and why I have my dad's print of that given to me on my 21st birthday, and the poster for my senior recital on my wall.
Nice. Yeah. I get the connection now between you and my good friend Theo, who's my everything, my curator, my editor, and someone who helps me learn how to work digitally All of the things that he's done for me in the last 2.5, 3 years. Always, there's the musical aspect of our collaboration, and I don't think I've ever heard him play a note, but I know that I'm engaged with someone who is like you, musical.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he probably would tell you, well, I played the bass and all of that, but that's not what I'm saying. Because again, I haven't heard him pick up any one of those instruments, and yet I know he's musical. So you're right on that one. And I wonder if when you're in a crowd, you kind of are attracted to someone like Teo, who you can kind of tell has a studied background of music and jazz, but also just isn't doing it right now. But that there's jazz there. Is some indicator that they're
I don't
influenced
know that
like you are?
I guess it's not a visual thing. If I
No.
know from hearing someone talk and hearing how they are maybe poking at a boundary of conversation, and are willing to be imprecise in the pursuit of something beautiful, and I do tune to that. And I've encountered many people in Zoom meetings in the past couple of years that are these little collaborations. That there are lots of duets going on, some trios, and can we jam together? And if we can jam together, when I'm on this gig and I need to sub out, I'm calling you, or if I'm going to book this gig, I'm going to call you. There's 3 or 4 people.
There's a lot of that relationship building, wasn't there? So,
it is, and the jazz musicians that the freelance musicians have been doing this gig work for a long time.
Yes, they have.
And
some of them are up into their 70s, and they're still out there. They come here to Connecticut to a little theater called, oh Lord, how can I not remember the name? But it's here out in really northwest corner, and it's surprising who comes there and plays. And a friend of mine who follows, people of that ilk, said that he asked one once, why you used to back up Paul, the Paul McCartney, when he was. So what are you doing out here at the Infinity Theater? and he'd say, well, first, I really like the name Infinity for a place. Mm-hmm. If I'm going to be anywhere, I want to be in Infinity. That was that's a jazz thought, isn't it?
Totally.
And the other is that people come here from quite a far away because they really, truly are dedicated to hearing and feeling, experiencing the music. This isn't a casual place to come. You just don't drop in. You have to plan to get here. And yet it's beautiful out here. It is. It's Yale has a facility in this town of Norfolk where they have classical ensembles come and spend a season. But it's a musical area. And so the people who love jazz of any kind, or the blues, they will come to the Infinity. They tried to put a second Infinity in the middle of Hartford, where there'd been a bunch of renovations done around there and tearing down and putting up. As far as I can tell, it never, even though it's closer to 350,000 people who can come in, it's never done as well. It's the magic of that one place called Infinity. You can't have Infinity twice. Absolutely.
And this is so much about the soul of the place.
It is.
And that it's okay because I Cincinnati, I love it. So it's a city with soul. That city has soul. And if I might be a force of energy and invitation and inspire others to bring form to the liberation of their human spirit here in Charlotte, to give Charlotte a soul, more of a soul, and to embody that. What a piece of a great work to have been part of. And
Yeah.
whether it's, software development, I mean, that's great, but really it is bringing people together. It is going from the place of pointing at someone else and saying, you're wrong, you are wrong, I identify you as wrong, to a togethering, right? From othering to togethering. How
Yeah.
might we come together through an invitation to sit in a circle, put up a bulletin board, open a marketplace, and get to work, you know? And that's the simple part of facilitating an open space, is getting those four pieces right, and the principles and the law. That's not the magic of it. I mean, and the magic of it is tuning to the spirit of who are the right people, who do we wish to have in this place, and what is the invitation that will bring them there, and what is the question that will draw them and bring forth that spirit, that unnameable quality that feeds the carbon in our body.
Right. Right. As I'm watching the time here now, I want to be sure I don't take it too far beyond the usual stopping point, because unfortunately, as wonderful as people are listening to podcasts, their brain kind of checks off somewhere between 30 and 40 minutes. But
after 200 podcasts, you probably know that.
I do. I have I can feel it, but it brings me though to the kind of question that maybe we'll have to pick up in another conversation. First, as a comment, there's no time in my almost 80 years, 2 months from now, I'll be 80, that I've ever felt more clear demand for people to get back together in the way you've just described. People of every sort, back in present, each other's presence, back together, and looking together to see if there's a way through some of these horrendously complex questions, like children being shot to death in a school, and why no one seems to know how to warm up the hearts of the cold-hearted politicians who continue to let this go unabated. That's a question, and it would be wonderful if there were ways that people could be brought together from every perspective on that and just work it out. Is that the kind of thing, more concretely, that you would like to be doing? Starting with the issue, the what Peter cited as wicked problems, and he didn't mean it like the Wicked Witch, even though his aunt Margaret Hamilton played the Wicked Witch.
No way! Oh my gosh!
Yeah. The Wicked Witch, but he called them wicked problems. But those are the kind he felt that any practitioner of any sort can and should dive into the wicked problems, and that the growth that comes from that is greater than solving the day-to-day problems of what are we going to eat and where should we go tonight for entertainment. So back to the question, is that what you'd like to see, taking on the wicked problems?
Oh, absolutely. To the depth of my soul, to be in the arena where people are that there's a place for this 100% certified organic conversation that we can have intimately with one another, and that we might show others the grace to be with curiosity and uncertainty and speak the unspeakable in a private space, to say, I don't know the answer to this question. I don't know why people what has happened in someone's life to cause them to take up arms of whatever kind, and to want to inflict violence on another. I don't know, and I don't know how to prevent. What do you think? So and to have those conversations, to me it's so important that togethering begin at the atomic level, at that single level that you have. If that conversation is so fragile, to have it in a large group, it's just that can't hold.
Yeah.
That the brave space of an intimate space that now Zoom has allowed us to be completely intimate in this way, and that there's a possibility that I hope for that, and I do want to be a force for that gathering in the world.
Good. Oh, good. I think it's going to happen for you, Ryan. I'm sorry you had to go through that horrible time with the illness, and clearly from my eye, you look quite recovered, and you're authentic. That seems to be a very important aspect these days, authenticity, and your desire to work particularly with small clusters of people where there's a reasonable chance of real interchange, real revealing, if you will, uncovering is noble. I hope there's a way that you can do this that has some kind of institutional support, but also leaves you the hell alone so you can do the job. We'll set you up. This is what NTL did for years, but we're going to leave you alone when the door closes and you've got X number of people in that room. You're not going to. There's some principles and there's safety concerns, but beyond that, it is about we'll see. That is the key. We will see what comes out, and therefore we'll never be able to look at the same thing, ourselves, others, the wicked problem, the same way. Now, that's a deal. That would be worth someone's time and money.
Amen, brother.
So thank you, Ryan. And folks, his name is spelled Rijon. You'll see that. And we had a quiz before we started because I asked him how I should pronounce his name, and I failed it 3 times in a row. But I think it's a musical name, Rijon Erickson. Is a special guy, and I'm glad to have met him, and I hope to meet him soon again.
Pleasure is mine, Dave.
Thanks for listening to the Practice Podcast, where we discuss practice with a capital P. If you'd like to hear more, listen in on Spotify, Automatic, and Apple Podcasts, or go to inactionresearch.com/podcast-page. And if you'd like to learn more about social inaction and the nature of practice, head over to inactionresearch.com for more information. Thank you for supporting this show. We look forward to hearing from you soon. Oh, and one more thing. How could I forget? The book on practice as a way of being is available now in digital form, something that would be new, like podcasting to many of us. And it's a great way of learning more and more about what this podcast presented when Peter Vale and I originated it several years ago. So please come to mylibrary.world/practice, and you'll see what I mean. Thank you.